out of surgery, and basically what they told me was his his colon and his intestines had popped out. And they don't think that he didn't do anything yesterday, so they don't think it was anything that he did yesterday. They think he's had it for a while, and it's been popping in and out. The scary part is that if he took a shot to the stomach while that was, he could have died. I mean, he could rupture the colon and you know, become septic, and that's not good. So, you know, everything happens for a reason. This worked out. You know, it's great the way this worked out, actually, to find out that this kid had this problem and was unhealthy, and we were able to get it fixed, and they think he'll be out 4 to 6 weeks. I was talking to Matt Damon tonight, and he disagrees. He said he's had hernia surgery, and anybody who said 4 to 6 weeks is ridiculous. That's not right. So we'll see how this thing plays out for Rob. I don't know.
With the late shuffle, of course, you had to offer refunds. You said it was a sellout, but I mean, you know what kind of financial impact it had on the gate? I mean, were there returns and resales?
Were you at the fight tonight?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. Did you see an open seat? I love Australia, man. This place is insane. It's awesome. No, the fans are incredible, man. They showed up. There was a big sign out in front that said, you know, the main event is off, and you can get a refund on your tickets if you want. People didn't want a refund; they wanted to see fights. So the place was packed. You'd have never thought the main event was gone. So incredible.
How about pay-per-view wise? I mean, I imagine it couldn't have been great for pay-per-view sales.
All right, so obviously the news is that Robert Whittaker had to pull out of the fight against Kelvin Gastelum in the last minute. It was the day of the fight. Had a hernia issue. As far as what caused it, that's unclear. It sounds like he may have had been dealing with it for a while, and with the whole weigh-in process and him having to cut weight a day before, it seems like that may have been what finally put it over the edge. So he had to go into the surgery, have that taken care of. Obviously, Dana was just talking about it being a 4 to 6 week thing at the very least. The thing that isn't mentioned with that is that even if it does take 4 to 6 weeks and it's a quick recovery compared to, say, what Matt Damon said, 4 to 6 weeks would probably be before he can even get back into training. So it's not like this thing is taken care of in 4 to 6 weeks, and then 4 to 6 weeks from now, Robert Whittaker is fighting again. So what's going to have to happen is he's going to have to be 100%. He's going to have to set aside a certain amount of time for training, probably another 8 weeks, and then they'll have to plan a fight from then. So it's not likely that Whittaker is going to be back in the octagon anytime soon. If it's by June, that would be shocking to me. I think it might even be longer than that. So we're going to lose him for a little while here. And with his last title defense being in June in Chicago of 2018, there might be some questions as far as whether or not it's worth stripping him of the belt. I don't know if that's the best idea. Whittaker won the belt by winning the interim title, and then having that interim title converted into a regular title. To me, what seems to make the most sense right now is you probably want to just make sure he has time, let him heal up. And then with Kelvin, first off, make sure that whatever diseases he has, whether that's staph, well, he did mention that it was staph. If he has ringworm too, get that shit taken care of. And then from there, it seems like what would make sense is to have Kelvin versus Israel for an interim title, and then let the winner fight Whittaker once Whittaker's back and healthy. As far as who deserves the blame for this, though, what's interesting to me is that during fight week, there were some pictures coming up of Kelvin Gastelum, and I'll pull them up right here, where it's pretty clear that he had ringworm and probably staph. And what's interesting to me is that, in theory, if you have these types of infectious skin diseases, you're not supposed to be able to compete. So here, I don't know if you can tell, but the ringworm is right there. And he also appeared to have staph on the back of his neck. Right there. So in theory, you shouldn't even be allowed to fight if you have this. I know Kevin Lee famously fought against Tony Ferguson with staph, and if I remember correctly, I think Ferguson ended up catching it after the fight because of the fact that he was fighting Kevin Lee. So while I understand from Kelvin's perspective, hey, I'm going to try to keep this quiet and not let anyone know and go through and fight, you know, I can perfectly understand that if Kelvin had to pull out because of the staph. People might have been giving him shit, but in reality, he shouldn't have been in this fight in the first place. This is a fight that should not have happened on this weekend. So, on one hand, the fight that shouldn't have happened didn't happen. But on the other hand, now because Kelvin, despite having staph, wasn't the one that was pulled out, but rather Whittaker with the hernia was. It seems like Whittaker is getting a lot of blame here, when in reality, I don't think either of them really deserve a ton of blame, but I definitely don't think that either of them should be walking away from this thinking that they did anything special. Speaking of which, here's Kelvin Gastelum with Henry Cejudo's belt saying just that.
Traveled thousands and thousands of miles from home, made the weight. You know, in my world, we're in the wrestling world. The guy shows up, makes the weight. For some reason, doesn't want to, cancel the bout. The guy forfeits the match. I win. I'm the champion.
Just the timeline of what happened. I mean, when did you find out something was going on? How did this morning unfold for you? Did you know last night? When did this happen?
I found out this morning.
What did somebody call you? When did you just lay
I had UFC staff knocking my door at 7 a.m. this morning and, told me the news.
Was there any any attempt to try to get another fight somehow or stay in this? I mean, how did that go? Did they say this is off? Or...
Yeah, they just pretty much told me that Rob was, out of the fight, and that, weigh-ins happen. There has to be a process for me to even get a fight. So there's no other way that Cowboy or something like would be able to step up just because, commission and rules and that process and stuff.
Yeah. We kind of don't even really know where Rob's status is right now, so I'm assuming it's too soon to try to figure out what happens. Right. But what do you think should happen next? I mean, you feel like rebook this? I mean, you're carrying that belt. You feel like you shouldn't be a champion anymore? What do you feel should happen next?
Well, I'm the champ, for sure. Like I said, in my world, in the wrestling world, a guy shows up and makes weight, for some reason don't want to forfeit the match, then the other guy is the winner. I'm the winner. I'm the champ. And that's how it should be.
You want to defend against the winner tonight with Izzy and Anderson? Or
Hopefully Rob heals up great. Wish him a speedy recovery. And then after he heals up, I give him a crack at my title.
There were some concerns this week about you that maybe you had staph or something like that.
I did have some complications with staph and stuff this week, but none of that was going to keep me away from fighting.
I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. I had complications with staph, but it wasn't supposed to keep me away from fighting. And in theory, that should definitely keep you away from fighting because you're not supposed to be giving it to people. And this is especially the case because with Robert Whittaker, he actually had a very long layoff because of staph. He had a really bad staph infection. So the fact that Robert Whittaker was going to take staph into a fight with Robert Whittaker, or the fact that Kelvin was going to take his staph infection into a fight with Robert Whittaker, obviously there's probably going to be some bleeding, probably going to be some open wounds, and they're definitely going to be making contact with each other. This is a fight that should have been pulled off much sooner than it was the day of the fight. Kelvin should have been pulled out, and in reality, we knew about the staph infection during fight week, so if they would have pulled Kelvin out during that time, which they should have, you have time to at least either decide whether you're bumping in or bump Israel Adesanya up and give him a title shot right away. You could decide if you wanted to just try to call someone in and bring him in to fight Whittaker. Now, granted, that fight would end up getting canceled because of the hernia, but even still, like the UFC would have had a chance to like bring in a replacement and like make an effort to salvage the fight. But with Kelvin, he did what he could to try to hide it. Didn't do a very successful job, obviously, because you can tell by the pictures that people could still tell that he had some issues. So to me, for Kelvin to slide in and get to the point where he would have had the fight had the hernia not happened to Whittaker, that's not a good sign at all. I understand that these fights build up over a long time, that these guys have these really long fight camps. They're only paid during their fights, and for them, there's a lot of incentive to just fight through a staph infection or fight through these infectious skin diseases. But it's not safe for the other fighter. It's not fair to the other fighter. And so I have a hard time, while I understand Gastelum's point of I spend all this time training, I traveled halfway across the world, I deserve it. I get that part, but he should not have been in the fight in the first place. So for him to be walking around with the title belt, it rubs me the wrong way in more ways than one. So hopefully with time, hopefully they figure out what the timeline is going to be with Whittaker. If it is what I'm speculating, that he's probably not going to be able to get back before June because he's going to have to heal up from the surgery, get into fight camp, and then fight. Then I think it probably makes sense to let Gastelum get clear of this staph infection. Hopefully it doesn't take him too long and cause similar issues that Whittaker had. And then from there, we can get an interim title fight, get Kelvin in there, probably get Israel in there, and then let Whittaker fight the winner, or you can potentially have Whittaker fight someone else in the meantime. I guess it depends on who that could be. Weidman just lost to Jacare. Jacare already lost to Whittaker, so it's kind of tough to put those two together. But just get an idea of the timelines, and hopefully Kelvin will fight for a belt soon. Hopefully Israel will fight for a belt soon, and hopefully Whittaker will be back healthy fairly soon as well.